Okay, guys, this is day 2 of a series that I haven't named yet. I'm not sure if I will. But the whole point is that I'm showing up without a plan. And I am doing this very intentionally, meaning I intentionally refuse to over plan and over clarify what I am doing right now. So to give you a recap, this is my second day of my 365 days. At least that's the intention of showing up on YouTube, basically daily. And there is no format. It is all about free expression and doing that as a form of art. And so today I was like, okay, what do I want to talk about? And I want to talk about when I make the decision to show up every day on YouTube, what I notice about myself, like how my monkey mind can work, right? And how there were days where I'm like, oh, if I already started this intention now, I would not have been able to show up because I don't feel like it, or I'm tired, or it was just so busy and blah 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 blah. And I started to automatically try and solve that. Like, okay, what do I do on those days? And there were other moments where things would happen that would really like energetically like just pull me down, where I'm like, oh, now I don't feel like I want to show up. And the good thing about having a few weeks before the new year entered and having to see how I behaved and where I taught and how I was basically trying to hold on to a plan or hold on to something more than just the idea of, okay, I'm going to show up every day. I noticed there was a big form of control and perfectionism that was trying to grasp. And then I decided all of these forms of trying to control the narratives, trying to control, the unknown, trying to perfectionist it, trying to think my way through it, trying to give titles or formats or anything, were all forms of me actually not allowing myself to be free and have that expression. And so I completely dropped it. I'm like, it's actually easier to just completely drop it than you think. If you don't, because I said it in the first episode too, I've been in this self-development journey for a long time. And I don't see myself as someone that needs healing, because I see myself as being whole and complete. And when I notice triggers, or when I notice that things hurt or whatever, I see it as messages, but I definitely do not see it as things that I want to fix. It's actually for me a chance to make a decision. And that's how I started to understand, by changing that entire narrative instead of fixing things, making a decision. It has become a way of living. So right now with this, I did the same thing. When I noticed that parts of me wanted to grasp and control, and it seems professional, right, to have in that entire idea and everything, but I was also seeing how that is procrastinating me, and that actually made me stop, and it actually made me go slower, and it actually made me more fearful, and it's actually everything that I didn't want to do with this experiment, because it also is an experiment. And at one moment, because I could see everything that was happening, I was like, interesting. I choose to let that go. I choose to let that identity go, to no longer function from that, robotic program that has been installed for many years, and it's really just outdated because it's completely the complete opposite of what I want to do and the movement that I want to make. So instead of fighting it, I actually just said, hey, I understand and I see it, and guess what? I'm choosing this. So I'm choosing, and you could see it as rebellion, but it was actually just a decision, because I know the old way, it doesn't work for me, at least. It may work for others, but not for me, because I know I tend to be a control freak. I used to be way more, but moving to Mexico really, really helped me to be more of who I truly am, which is more relaxed and very present, and really believing that even if things happen that don't seem to be good in that moment, are actually perfect. I'm going to give you an example. So I invested in a house here in Mexico a few years ago, And it took forever for it to be built, and it took forever for me to actually get the CFE meter installed, which is like the electricity meter. But finally I got it, and I got my first bill, and I had to pay for it. So I tried to download the app, but I still have my phone registered under like the Dutch system details, and it wouldn't allow me to download a Mexican app. And so I did some stuff and eventually ended up completely like erasing my phone. But I knew, really, even in that moment, like, this is a good thing, Ash. Just breathe through it, because I could lose everything. But I double checked before I actually chose to erase everything, because there was an option. I was like, let's do it. I already know I have a backup from like this morning at 1 o'clock in the morning. So let's just do it and let's see where it goes. I am techie, but not that techie. Long story short, when I reinstalled my phone, everything was as it was. So it was perfect. But what happened was my data opened up. Like I didn't have a lot of storage left. And when I checked, that was like a few days ago, I couldn't make a video of something. I'm like, why is it stuck? Like, it shouldn't be. And I checked, and it showed that the system cache was so big that it was basically holding space for like, I think I have a 128 gig phone, but it was so big that I basically hold half of that. And I did everything that I could to erase it, to open up that case, that storage. It didn't happen. But now, because of that app that I had to download, I did a big reset, and voila, now I have like so much storage available, and I'm like, oh, this was so worth it. So this is all about, learning the hard way through life, to really trust that life is here to guide us, and that we're never victims, and really take that ownership back and that power back. I did the same thing with this. It's like, I see how I want to grasp, I see how I want to control, I see how I try to kind of still have this, it's very innocent, and you could say, oh yeah, well, I'm just a professional, or hey, this is just a smart thing to do, this is strategy. No, this is art. And I think it's a good thing that I've positioned it for myself as art without a real business plan behind it. Because then you can truly create freely, and you literally get to see what happens if you naturally just go that way. And what inspired me is that a few months ago, I live in this beautiful, cute little town. And a few months ago, one of the art schools here, who normally mostly focus on kids, they put out this invite that they would start fashion class. Oh my God, that they would start fashion design classes. That's it. And this lady from Playa basically met up with the lady who runs the art school here. And she would start adult classes. And like, literally in my body, I just jumped. I'm like, yes, I would do that. Not because I have the ambition to become a fashion designer at all, but because the little girl in me always wanted to learn and see always created stuff from her dolls. Like, I never liked playing with dolls, but I love making clothes for them. And so that's kind of what I did. If people would give me a doll, I would give it clothes, My mom, she learned how to use the machine from my grandma, who was very old-fashioned. Like she was, I think, 16 when she got married. She always had to take care of all her brothers and sisters because she was the oldest sister. She learned how to make her clothes from scratch, and so my mom was raised with a mother who was really handy. She made all the clothes for the kiddos, and my mom learned a few tricks. And so she had her own machine as well. I'm thinking about the name, guys. How do you call that? A shim? I forgot the name. Anyway, so I'm just talking around it, but you know what I mean. So my mom always had some fabrics left here and there, and so that's how I just started to create hand sewing all the outfits for my dolls. And so anyway, I started, and what I really loved about being a beginner again was the fact that I completely surrendered to the process. There was no ego involved. There was no pressure involved. It was literally just treating myself for a date and immersing myself into this new skill. And it literally started with us learning how to draw sketches. And even before that, it started with make a decision, like what do you want to create? And I learned that just by focusing on that first thing, like what do you want to create? And I picked a skirt. Then, it was like, okay, then create your design, and then blah, blah, blah. So all the rest followed. But every time it was just like one step. And I love the fact that I was enjoying the process so much and learning new things during the process so much. And if I would make a stitch in a wrong way, I could just redo it. And it felt meditative every time I had that 2-hour class. And it inspired me. It's actually the start of this. It inspired me because it reconnected me to that freedom that I felt as a kid when I allowed myself to create more. Like, hey, this is how I want to run my business. This is how I want to create bigger things. And eventually it led me to making this decision of, okay, let's do this every day, because it's what I love doing most, and it was also what scared me most. It was also what constantly was in between everything. I was like, oh yeah, well, let's do it next week. And I wouldn't do it. It was not really a fixed thing. And then before you know it, it would kind of fade off or it would be a constant excuse of, oh, I have nothing to share, or I have no inspiration, or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's the version of me that I had to let go of, and that's exactly why I'm not showing up with a plan, because for me, the plan itself was it was constricting, and that's why I'm sharing it. It felt like if I have to plan it in my calendar, then it has to happen. I'm gonna give you an example. I walk 10K steps daily, and I must admit sometimes it's 8K and sometimes it's 15K, but it's always above average. And I always do it. And sometimes I do it early morning, and sometimes I do it a few times a day to, that it adds up. But there's one thing that's constant. I always show up. I always do it. And that's actually how I wanted to see this. I was like, I don't want to plan this in my calendar because it's just who I choose to be. It's the identity I choose to have. Like right now let me check. It's like almost 12 o'clock. And yesterday, I remember I started this around 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. So no, it's not planned, but I will show up, and I will do it before it gets dark, because I want to use lightning, like the natural lightning. I don't want to have too many stuff to think about. It's just me, my laptop, and the webcam. That's it, It needs to be as easy as possible. I don't want to have anything that could disturb that flow, meaning, oh, I have to look perfect, or I have to, change location. No, I want to do it here because I actually love to create from here. I make the most amazing food from here. It gives me an overview of the space where I'm in. It's just a feeling of when I stand here, this is the spot, and it doesn't mean that I'm not gonna do it in different spaces. I just don't want to think about it. And if I feel inspired in that moment that I want to do it in another room, then I will do so. But I just wanted to make it as easy as possible, because there's definitely no excuse for me left. Nothing to negotiate, nothing to constantly reconsider, overthink, everything that in some way, shape, or form could restrain it. I'm like, no, this is creativity speaking. And that's why I started this whole thing with leading with creativity, because it's a different energy to tap into. Like, two people can do the same thing, but it really makes a difference how they experience the journey and how they end up, like what the result will be based on, like, I think that the most common examples is when people go to the gym, right? Like you have two people signing up for the gym. It's New Year's and they want to lose weight, and they start at the same pace or at the same, like they have a similar body weight, etc. But one can show up as, hey, I have the identity now of someone who just goes to the gym and I work out and I love the process. I love the fucking process. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna see it as freedom, liberation, and things to learn and to explore. Or you have the ones like, oh, I don't know how to do this, and I have to do this, and I don't want to give up, and they constantly have to train their mindset around it. and they don't have self-love, and they have a constant fear of what will people think when I'm at the gym because I'm overweight, blah 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 blah. I completely disconnected from those stories. One of the reasons why in yesterday's episode I didn't really talk about all the stories that were the reasons that helped me back, because we all have stories. We all have things in our life that can, stop us in our tracks or automatically become protection mechanisms, because, oh, well, that kid did this in the past, so if I'm going to do this, then, this is going to happen again. And I will give you one example, but it's only going to be one, because honestly, it's not about what happens. It's more about, okay, and who do I choose to show up as? Who do I choose to be? And it has nothing to do with an episode that once happened in my life. And that story became too big in my system. That story became too big in how I want to show up. So the story was that when I was 16, this is one of the stories, but when I was 16, I was in my final year of high school. And I had a very important presentation that I had to do. And that presentation would be half of the final grade that I would get, and it was for Dutch literature. And I picked, or like with Dutch I mean like the speaking language, blah blah blah. It wasn't about the Dutch writers or anything. I got to pick whatever I wanted to do, so I picked Malcolm X because I saw the movie and it really made a huge impact on me. And so I wanted to share my classmates about the story. And obviously I think we can all agree that speaking for an audience is nerve-wracking in general, It's one of the biggest fears that people have. So yeah, it was scary to do that. But when I stood there in front of the classroom, I just owned it. Like something took over and I was there. And when I felt the tension, I just decided to walk around in the classroom, but also to engage the kids, to be like, hey, this is an interactive conversation and I want to connect with you guys. So I completely dropped my mind and I went into my body and I did it, and I did an outstanding performance. When I was done, the teacher was also impressed and he gave me the highest number, a 9. And a 9 is like an A+ or something. And so the kids in the classroom, like obviously some were, I guess, positive, but I never noticed that, because in the right corner there were a group of kiddos that found it fun to have comments about me even walking around. I was apparently wearing heels and it was distracting them. They were making fun of the teacher and me, saying that we would have a secret affair together, and anything to just try to take away the hard work that I put in, the performance that I had, and trying to knock me down while I was shining. I was a tough chick, so I was like acting like it didn't hurt me, but subconsciously it freaking hurt me so bad. And this was like one story of many I could tell. And so fast forward to when I was in university, I had to do a presentation for marketing, and I completely blacked out. And I never understood why I blacked out. But the reason I blacked out was because unconsciously my body knew it's not safe when you stand in front of the class, right? And I found out later that, and it made sense, like, I get it. And I also get why I'm not out there. I also get why I'm holding myself back. But then you can do anything you can to fix it, or you just make a decision. Going back to the power of a decision. It's like, there are so many things that I've uncovered, if it comes from dating or investing or even as a mother. There are so many things that you learn and you grow into. But there's one thing. I am not going to hold myself back on something that happened in the past. Like, oh yeah, my ex-boyfriend cheated on me. Okay, that was an episode in my life that I had to go through that. Doesn't mean that every guy's like that. And I don't want to bring that into any new connection that I have, right? Or in this case, I subconsciously let, me shining and then being attacked by others stop me from showing up again. And it did. And when I clearly saw that, I'm like, okay, but I don't choose to run that show anymore, like that program. And apart from that, the controlling part of trying to be safe, and the perfectionist in me is trying to think everything through and have all these topics ready. I'm like, no, this is an art form. there's always something I can share. There's always something alive in me. It doesn't have to be perfect. I made so many little mistakes right now. I'm not gonna edit it. You know, it's like me talking to a friend. I refuse to, because I really want to be real with you guys, and I want to be real to me, and I want to make it as bulletproof as possible, like I said before. And so this is it. And yeah, I may tell more stories in the future about things that happened and how I changed that perspective. But end of the day, it's always about taking ownership and making a decision. Because, you know, if you fail a few times, I think the biggest thing is continuously showing up, you know, and not letting yourself be beaten down, and stop from actually going for your dreams. And for me, the dream is just to be me. My dream is just to show up as me and to allow myself to live a life based on that. And this was actually the only thing that I didn't do, and now I do it. And so, and I get teary right now. So for me, it's like, it's already accomplished. You know, for me, this is it. This is literally the act of doing it, and that liberation. Thank you so much for watching.